So anyone who watches my channel regularly knows that every now and then I like to make a video where I just rant about the Gunas, about the three natures that make up everything in the universe and the multiverse. And sometimes it doesn't exactly sound like new information. It sounds like I'm rehashing a lot of the old information, but there's always something new in it. There's always some kind of fresh kind of perspective or new information in it. What you're about to see is that. It is my rehashing of the Gunas and my random thoughts about the Gunas and the natures of existence. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you could skip this video, but if you just like to hear me talk or you haven't really been introduced to the Gunas or how they work in the universe and the multiverse, then feel free to keep on watching this video. But this is just a warning and also just a pre-presentation about what you're going to hear and what you're going to observe. At any rate, here it is. This is going to be kind of a rant on being human and how strange it is, just forewarning. But it's strange. We as human beings, we become comfortable and we fall in love with what is familiar and it becomes comfortable. It becomes something that we crave. We crave what is familiar because it becomes so comfortable. At the same time, we want to push our boundaries. We want to push the borders of who we are and what we think we know. We naturally want to know more and expand the boundaries of what we know because it feels like we're expanding our freedom. And it is. If we know more, if we're open to more, if we have the potential to become more. At the same time, the familiar is also kind of a craving, isn't it? We start to really sink into what's available to us and want that as well. We both want what we have and the limitations of our world and what is beyond our world and to become more. And I think most of us are caught somewhere in between these two things. And we've this ping-ponging effect of going back and forth. What is familiar, wanting to be more, wanting to become more. What is comfortable because we know it, and then wanting to be more, wanting to know more. Back and forth. This world is a Rajasic world. It is Rajasic. It is there are three Gunas that make up everything in the universe, all the various universes in the various dimensions. Three different natures. One is Sattva, one is Raja, one is Tamoguna. All these three gunas, all these three natures combine in various ways to make up the nature of any single object within the various dimensions and universes in these dimensions. Whether it be a table, whether it be a rock, whether it be a human being, whether it be a fox, whether it be a tree, what have you. Now, the nature might expand if there is like a singular body of rock or a landmass that's everything's connected. That nature might be inherent to larger pieces of matter. But Tamoguna is kind of torpor, darkness, stagnation, non-moving, non-wanting to move. Now, it's very good for a table to have a lot of Tamoguna because it's being a table, or a tree to have a lot of Tamoguna. It doesn't want to move around a lot. It just wants to move around a little bit. It has a little bit of Raja in there. Raja is restlessness, is passion, is movement, is energy, is desire. And Sattva, and usually human beings, we might define Sattva in various ways, but we all kind of want to be Sattvic. At least most of us, I'd say. And Sattva is purity, clarity, clearness, an evenness to the way that we are and the way that we act and the way that we think, and just calmness, purity, evenness, no need for restlessness, but at the same time, activity, but positive and clear activity, not shaky activity and not just solid darkness of thought, of being, of action. And because this world is Rajasic, because this world is that world that kind of goes back and forth between Tamoguna and Sattva Guna, and the Gunas are not different it's not moralistic. Don't think of the Gunas as Sattva being the best and Tamoguna being the worst. No, the Gunas are different natures that need to combine in various ways to make everything. Because think about it, in Sattva Guna, you'd be more like Tamoguna if you didn't have action, if you didn't want to act, if you didn't have some kind of desire, even like subtle desire. And desire here is not bad. It's the Eastern definition of desire, Hindu definition, where everything needs desire in order to take form, in order for you to do things, in order for you to be motivated anyway. But if we were to put everything on a spectrum, Earth is significant because it doesn't really know what it is. It's not this darkness or lack of torpor. Things happen, society progresses, people become better and better, even if it doesn't seem like it. So it's not Tamoguna. It's not torpor. At the same time, it's not completely Rajaguna, where it's just always back and forth, because we do progress. We progress towards more and more sattva guna, and we become better people. Over time, there's less murder. Over time, there might not be more happiness, but my theory is because there's so much Rajas here, but we might not become more happy in polls or in how we measure happiness usually, but there's less violence over time. There's more education over time. There's more self-reflection over time. So at the same time, we have all this rajas of all this activity and all this back and forth and all these terrible things in this world and all these good things in this world, but we're slowly becoming better and better, slowly becoming more and more sattvic. I'm using sattvic in a more moralistic sense for my explanation. But the reason why we'll always have such a large section of who we are as human beings being obsessed with the material, obsessed with image, obsessed with money, obsessed with the things that make us feel substantial for a moment, but don't actually contribute to us becoming more significant persons or deeper people and attribute to a greater understanding. The reason that will always be a big part of ours is because it's a very Rajasic world that we live in. It's a world that has a certain vibration. And tamasic worlds, the animal life, the plant life is mostly poisonous, produces much less fruit. The animal life, mostly carnivorous, if not omnivorous. And carnivores might eat other carnivores on planets like this. On Earth, carnivores don't usually eat other carnivores. And in Rajasic worlds, this is a Rajasic world where everything's kind of mixed in. There's a lot of passion. There's a lot of movement. We're a Rajasic world. In Sattvic worlds, there is a harmony among nature. The predators only eat as much as they need, and there's few predators in the animal kingdom. There's enough to keep the other animals in check as far as population goes, but no more than that. And they don't consume intelligent beings. They don't consume sentient beings. They consume them even less than we get on this world of Earth. Plant kingdom, there's not a whole lot of toxic plants. There's only as many as is needed to keep from affecting the animal kingdom and the sentient races. And there's just this natural harmony and balance between both all three. The animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, and the part of the animal kingdom that is sentient species. There is this balance. On tamasic worlds, there is this poison and darkness. On Rajasic worlds like this one, it's kind of a toss-up. But it's important to realize that the three different kinds of natures are not moralistic in the sense that worst, better, best. It requires all of a combination of all of these things to create a world or to create any kind of nature. Because a table It might not produce poison and be completely tamasic or tamasic in a malevolent sense, but it needs to be tamasic so that it doesn't move, so that it remains a table. Same, trees can't be walking around all the time, so they need to be tamasic to a certain degree. Rajasic, that varies. Think of Rajasic as fire, as passion. You need fire, and you need motivation. And human beings in general epitomize Rajas. But there are sentient beings in this universe that do not require Rajas or Tamas. They just are, I don't want to say better, but just higher vibration constantly. They don't require a lot of Rajas or Tamas. We require a lot of Rajas and some Tamas and some Sattva as human beings. That is our nature. That is our essence. But there are intelligent beings in this universe, not just in other dimensions, but in this universe, that you might classify as something, as the traditional idea of an angel. Angels that they're more for order than consumption. They're not fire, they're not darkness. And when we think of light in this respect, we should think of illumination of mind, clarity of mind, clearness of thinking, and understanding and action. And you might ask, because we're Rajasic, who decides what clear understanding is? Who decides what clear reasoning is, what clear thinking is? It's a very Rajasic thought, but it's not about decision, it's about their ability to be without a lot of agitation. If you can be without agitation, if you can act without agitation, if you can act without any desire, because most of action, most of will for human beings is related to some desire. You might say, oh, I didn't buy this cereal because of any desire. I just, this is a good cereal that I liked in the past. There's some impression that makes you want that cereal. There's something that you experienced in your past, or some advertisement that you saw, something that gets you to pick that cereal. It might feel like free choice, but it's not. It is other things acting upon you to get you to choose that, rather than you freely choosing a cereal, or a kind of bread, or to lose weight. There are other things acting upon us that makes us choose, rather than us having free choice. And Sattva, if you're completely sattvic, other things do not act upon you, and you do not act completely out of desire. You act out of will that is untouched by desire. And the Bhagavad Gita is kind of a long lesson in the significance of acting not influenced by desire, and how action in that way leads us to God, to Godhead, to oneness, to unity, to Brahman, to a higher state of being than the slavery that is action only based on desire. We are most free when we do not act out of any desire, because things are not acting upon us to make us choose. We are choosing completely independent from anything that has acted upon us. And it becomes a strange world when we start to think of it as not a world in which human beings truly want to be free, but human beings act out of comfort, or act out of non-thinking or non-consideration. And while we might feel like we think about things to make decisions, the vast majority of our actions are not thinking. They are rajasic, based on desire. And desire does limit us. Our highest potential is not to act based on desire. It's to act upon an individual's highest virtue. Not something that a different source decides what a virtue is, but our highest virtue. Not influenced by wanting something, rather an action based on realization. rather than influence, especially the influences of emotion or passion of some kind or emotion of some kind that influences us to do something that is completely delineated from what we would choose had that not acted upon us. The truth of being human is that it is a struggle. We are a Rajasic planet, this Earth, and we are kind of in between Tamaguna and Sattva Guna. And we are kind of, we like to see things as black and white rather than a mix, or seeing the need for a mix. But we do need a mix of things. In order for there to be harmony, there has to be a mix. There can't just be Sattva. Otherwise, some animals wouldn't be carnivores, wouldn't even want to harm plants. If it was just Sattva, there could be no material existence. All material things would just die because they would stop taking from other life forms. If it was all Rajasic, there would be no clarity. If it was all Tamasic, then there would be nothing, everything would be sluggish, and everything would just end up decaying away. A carnivore might not even eat an animal that it should because it was just too lazy, or it was just too confused, or it was too still. So we need a combination. And to be human is to be able to understand that, or to try to understand the balance of things as they exist on this earth, but to be able to envision a higher reality, higher existence, in higher planes of existence, or on other planets in this very universe. It is to imagine. It is to try to become something more than we are, strive towards that, and achieve that. That's what it is to be human. At any rate, this has just been a total rant. I completely apologize. It's been a rant on the Gunas about what it is to be human and how different energies relate. I hope this has been interesting. Like this video if you liked it at all. Leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you guys, and feel free to share this wherever you like. At any rate, thank you very much for watching, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day. Your life is a garden. While you're in your garden, it's tempting to look at the space around your garden and think, I wish my garden was a little bit bigger. I wish I could expand this. I wish there were more flowers in my garden. And for that, I need more space. I need this garden to be bigger. And you're always looking on the outside. When we want more, we tend to not really appreciate what we have. We tend to not cherish it. We tend to not give it the love and care that it needs, or appreciate it while it's there. However big your garden is, that doesn't really matter. You have to be able to cherish what you have. You have to be able to smell the flowers. You have to be able to experience it. In relationships, or in career, or in the world, we're always trying to shoot for something bigger. We're always trying to accomplish more or get more. So many people, I think the majority of the human race, are not able to truly cherish, love, or experience what they do have because of this constant looking out, rather than being satisfied with what you have. Capitalist economy, or just a consumer economy of any kind, and many other kinds of economies, the value is on more, the value is on better, the value is on new. It is not a culture, global culture of satisfaction, of acceptance with what we have. Now, it's okay to want more. It's okay to work for more. It's okay to want your garden to be a little bigger, a comfortable garden. But the majority of the time, it's never really enough. And we want it to be bigger. We want more, and more. That's the nature of Rajas. And this planet is a Rajasic planet. What is Rajas? It's restlessness, it's passion, it's activity. It is red, it is fire, it is consume, it is want, it is the passion of emotion. And Rajas, it's often compared to
kind of between sattva and tamas. Tamas is darkness, dullness, inertia, and sattva is purity, light, clarity, brightness. Rajas is often seen as being between the two, but it's not, it doesn't really work that way. Rajas is kind of at the top of the pyramid if we're thinking about a pyramid, and sattva's on one corner and then tamas is on the other corner. And this pyramid doesn't really face any particular direction. It just depends on how you view these various gunas, these various attributes that make up all that is. But it is the nature of rajas to never be satisfied. No matter how much you have, it's not going to be satisfactory enough. We are encumbered with an overabundance of rajas in our lives, and we're encouraged to increase this rajas, this restlessness, this dissatisfaction, rather than just being satisfied. And there's a difference between being satisfied, being sedate and inert and not acting. There's a difference between the satisfaction of the stupid and the wise. The wise, sattvic, that satisfaction, there's a whole lot of activity going on mentally. There's a whole lot of cherishing. There's a whole lot of mental activity and thinking and experiencing. And tamas is the silence of the dumb, of the inert, of the vegging out, of not a lot of activity happening in the brain. You need some rajas sometimes to spur you to action, but you don't need so much. If we practice being satisfied with what we have, decrease that rajas, there will be greater clarity that we can experience what we have with and see our lives for what they truly are, and be able to experience them in all their smallness. Smallness is okay. Smallness is not bad. Smallness, there's an infinite amount of detail and experience that you can have with your small garden. There's an infinite amount of experience. Everything is infinitely small and infinitely large. Instead of looking outwards towards infinity, you can look towards the infinitesimal and what you can experience with the people you do have in your lives, even if it's just a few, or with the money that you do have, or with the apartment you have, the house you have, the life you have. There's so much experience you can have with that. You don't necessarily need more. It's okay to want more. It's not bad. None of this is bad. But decrease rajas, decrease restlessness, increase clarity, increase sattva, and you'll find that what you have is so much. At any rate, I hope this video was interesting. I hope this was helpful. If you like this video, I'll hit that thumbs up down there. It really helps out the channel, and feel free to share this wherever you like. At any rate, thank you very much for watching, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day.
So we've talked about tamaguna and kind of the darkness and torpor that it is. But we really haven't talked about how it can manifest as a spiritual force, or manifest as a subtle force that causes some very real spiritual changes or manifestations. So tamaguna, when it folds and folds and folds, think of it like a very thick blanket folding and folding and folding. It can replicate action. It can replicate activity. It can even replicate clarity if it folds enough times. If darkness itself folds and folds and folds, and if it's left alone long enough, it will produce some kind of greater effect that will affect other gunas and affect other states of existence, other ways of being, and other forms that are not dominated by tamaguna. When it folds in isolation, when it is left alone and there's enough tamas, it might not just remain something like a chair or a solid object for forever. The nature of a chair or a solid object, something being solid, needing to be solid because it performs that function, it needs to be solid at that time. It is mostly tamaguna, but it is not completely. It has other gunas in there, sattva and raja. But if tamaguna is left alone for long enough, we can think about Tiamat or some kind of Lovecraftian gods Lovecraftian gods drawn from, ancient Babylon and ancient Mesopotamia. But they were onto something when they're talking about these gods and the certain darkness that's left alone for long enough, and it also being primordial. So if it's primordial darkness, and it's left alone for long enough before anything was really manifested in any kind of material form that we observe now, or that we witness now, folding and folding and folding in that darkness, the darkness moving aeon after aeon after aeon, thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Just the darkness by itself, on the fringes of something that we might call God, on the furthest parts in the abyss, just that darkness left alone and folding and folding. There is activity that slowly starts to blossom. Rajas is produced out of this folding after a long, long time. And the action of this tamas left alone for long enough has its own kind of energy to it, its own kind of darkness that we might consider as some kind of cosmic storm, a cosmic force that is not self-aware, that is not conscious, that is not able to conceive of itself, that is not knowledgeable about the present moment, yet it is very intelligent, and it can move through the grander cosmos and take up things in its wake, in its force. This kind of primordial darkness, this primordial force, it is more dark and vaster than something like a Satan or something like a devil, something like that. It's more of a natural force that it doesn't necessarily choose. It's not self-aware, but it overtakes other energies. It overtakes other systems. It overtakes other, even conscious forces. And this is why masters, whether they be Eastern masters or Western, there's far more Eastern masters, and great yogis, they do not talk about the abyss, because to talk about it is to kind of feed it. To be aware of it is to be given the option to reach out to it. And to be given the option to reach out to it is to be given the option to touch it. And when you touch this folding darkness, this cosmic storm that has folded for thousands and thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of years, billions of years, if you touch that, you could be overwhelmed. You could be taken up in that cosmic storm produced from isolated darkness. And this terrible force that is this tamas that's left alone, the guna that should always be mixed, at least a little, just left in complete isolation for long enough. To touch that is to truly experience a kind of madness that is, it's madness because our minds are so limited and they're mixed between the gunas. But to touch this ancient yet solid darkness, solid all the way through, is to kind of be infected by it, kind of be consumed by it just by touching it a little bit. It's like a virus, like an infection. It can overtake you, assume your conscious mind, and you just become an extension of it. There are scarier things, or there is a scarier force than what human beings can conceive of. And it is a deeper force than something that is just something that is chaotic. It is a developed intelligence that is not self-aware, but vast and primordial. That's what's scary about it, because we cannot conceive of it. In the end, light always wins, but before that victory, this folding darkness consumes quite a lot in every cycle. And cycles usually begin and end in similar ways. But before they end and before the light wins, darkness consumes. And it consumes a lot. It consumes many. And masters don't talk about it. Because to know the names, to know the name, and to be able to touch it, because if you know the name of something, if you know the names of something, then you can call out to it. And to touch it is to be infected by it, and you lose your free will. And you become pure chaotic storm. But that's why masters don't talk about it. And that's why it's important to not become in contact with this force. It's something that I have great trepidation in even talking about, and I certainly won't say names or name singular of what this force is. But at any rate, if Tama Guna is left alone for long enough, it can fold and produce, and always does in every cycle, this primordial darkness. At any rate, thank you very much for watching, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day. To have cultivated sattva is to understand the rule of centers. Everything that is happening to you can be ruled from your center. It is not the product of something out there. It is a product of your ability to either react or not react to external stimuli. To cultivate sattva is to cultivate clarity, is to cultivate the ability to not just react, but to rule one's own actions. To rule one's own actions is the goal of spiritual life. If we cultivate sattva, then we attain this to varying degrees. The more sattva we cultivate, the more that we can act instead of react to the world around us. Our soul is at our center. And while we might think that God or higher dimensions is above in our mind, or above somewhere else, or above in space, it's really just a deeper frequency within our own soul. And the closer we get to our soul, the closer we get to the source. Most of us do not experience our soul. Most of us can't even grasp our soul, barely ever touch it, certainly not consciously. Because when we touch our soul, we're touching something that is not confined to what we usually define ourselves through, whether it be our personality, our attachments, our body, our race, our nationality, what religion we're a part of, what political spectrum, where we are on the political spectrum, or what kind of things we like. None of these things really touch our soul. Even the kind of religion that we affiliate ourselves with does not truly touch our soul. Religion and spirituality is supposed to give you a path to lead towards touching, not just touching your soul, but becoming your soul, burning away all the excess that accompanies life when we are born into this world, born into material and born into a circumstance in which we will start to identify with the material that surrounds our soul. And then the ego thinks that this is us. Sattva, it has to be laid aside. It has to be abandoned when we finally reach enlightenment, moksha, liberation, when we've reached a higher state of existence. And this is not talking about dying. We kind of pick up where we left off when we reincarnate. Enlightenment and moksha isn't achieved when you die. It has to be achieved while you're alive. Death does not, it's just a doorway into another you. It doesn't grant you any boons. It doesn't grant you enlightenment. It doesn't grant you moksha or liberation from samsara or this cycle of rebirth and suffering. We just kind of pick up where we left off in a different body based on our karmas and a different circumstance based on our karmas. But death does not grant liberation or enlightenment. It is just a doorway between another body and another circumstance based on our karmas. But to reach a higher state of existence here while we're alive, whenever we're alive, whether it's this life or that, the next life or the life after that, sattva is useful because it allows clarity. Somebody who cultivates sattva tries to not be attached to things in the world, tries to control emotion, control anger, control lust, control greed, and keep it to a minimum as much as we can, realizing that these do not carry us to a better state of being, do not carry us to what we truly want, even if we attain those things that greed lusts after or lust lusts after. Even if we attain those things, somebody who cultivates sattva knows that we won't be satisfied. We won't be satisfied with whatever we gain. And the more sattva that we cultivate, the more non-attachment, the more self-control, the more self-discipline, whether it be in martial arts, whether it be in meditation, whether it be in your studies in school or your spiritual studies outside of school, completely separate from job, whatever it is, cultivate self-control. One who cultivates self-control and cultivates sattva no longer has to be inflicted upon by the world. And the reason why sattva has to be left behind just before we reach enlightenment, just before we reach moksha, and there's different stages of enlightenment, different stages of moksha, is because it's kind of the boat that carries you to the other shore. Once you get to the other shore, what are you gonna do, carry the boat with you? No, you have to leave the boat behind. Once you reach sattva allows you to cross the sea of this life, of this world, and this way of being. But once you reach a higher state of being, you leave it behind. So what does this mean? Higher states of being, we're not dealing with the same material as we are here. Sattva is useful because it is a relationship with material, a proper relationship with material, a positive relationship with material, rather than a negative one, rather than a rajasic one that's passionate, rather a tamasic one that is torpor or just encompassed in material and just lost in the ignorance of material. It is a proper and positive relationship with material. But once we are beyond materialism that exists in this world or this universe, once we're beyond materialism, then that relationship has to stay behind because that only helped us to develop a positive relationship to material. But while we are here, sattva keeps us, and sattva is the energy that we cultivate. It keeps us focused, it keeps us self-disciplined, and it keeps us clear-minded. That is why meditation is very important to cultivate sattva, self-control, study, and also proper diet. We shouldn't be eating a lot of sugar. We shouldn't be eating a lot of meat. We should eat things that are healthy for our body to keep us light, that don't take a long time to digest. And that cultivates sattva within the body. And these energies, whether it be sattva, rajas, or tamas, I'm describing these energies in the only way that I know how. And it's our relationship to material or how human beings live. But these energies are different vibrations. And the more attuned, the more sattvic you are, the more of that vibration you are. The more rajasic you are, the more of that vibration you are. The more tamasic you are, the more of that vibration you are. It can be thought of as a spectrum, but it's almost like a triangle. And a lot of us are in between the 3 points, tamas, rajas, sattva. We're somewhere in the triangle in between. But it's not necessarily a spectrum from bad to good. Sattva is what we want to cultivate, but it's not necessarily moralistically good. It doesn't have. Do you call a certain vibration good? Do you call a certain a certain color of light good or a certain color good? It's a certain vibration. So we can think of it as a spectrum, but it's not really a spectrum. It's more like those three different points of a triangle where no certain point is up or down or sideways. It's just a triangle. Think of it kind of sideways. And we fall somewhere in between, and we can cultivate sattva and kind of go towards sattva, or go towards rajas, go towards tamas. But we're all kind of variations in between. And the best that we can do for ourselves and our spiritual journey is to cultivate sattva. And as we do so, we'll find out who we truly are, rather than how this world has influenced us to be. And that's, I can't think of a more positive message for our spiritual journey, a more positive direction that we would want to travel. At any rate, this has been a video about sattva and cultivating sattva. I hope that you found this interesting. Feel free to like this video, it really helps out the channel. Feel free to leave a comment, I'd love to hear from you guys. At any rate, thank you very much for watching, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day.